What is good, everybody? This is your guy Manny, and this is the Talking Sports with Manny YouTube channel. Welcome to another episode. Welcome to another stream. This stream right here, we're gonna have starts and sits fantasy questions. We're gonna talk about NFL injury report. We're gonna talk about pretty much everything and anything. I'm gonna start with the Lakers, man. The Lakers have signed Christian Wood to go ahead and play some power forward / center for the Lakers. Now, I envision this being a scenario where Christian Wood is coming off the bench. But yeah, I think he's going to be good for the Lakers. He's going to be good for what they're trying to do, and they got him so cheap. They got him very, very cheap, super cheap. So I'm excited for that for my Lakers. I think that Christian Wood is going to bring a different dynamic than any other big that the Lakers have had. I'm my boy Time Out Sports. Appreciate you hopping on the stream, man. I know we've talked a little bit on Twitter about the Lakers getting a stretch big. They finally got one in Christian Wood. He's a decent three-point shooter. A lot different from a guy like Jackson Hayes. So we'll see how that works out this season. But this stream is pretty much going to be more football focused. Man, I'm excited. I'm excited that football is back. And the game last night. Let's go ahead and get into the game last night. First of all, I think that Kadarius Toney is terrible. I said on my Twitter, I said, hey, Kadarius Toney is trash. Then I said, what's his name? Scott Moore is trash. It's not to disrespect these men. It's just strictly about the game. I don't like their games. I think that between Richie James, which I do like, I think Richie James has better hands than both of those guys. I think that for sure Richie James, Kadarius Toney, Sky Moore, they're all smaller guys. These are three guys that pretty much do the same things. They are slot wide receivers. I remember during the game when I think it was Richie James, he went deep and then Mahomes threw him the ball. That's not his game. He's a guy that you can throw the ball to, he can catch the ball and create with space, right? Then they had Watson. Watson was okay. He just does what he does. He's just a solid guy, right? Then you had Rashee Rice, who I had high hopes for, picked him up in the draft, tons of places. You can see that the Kansas City Chiefs have not invested a top draft pick in a wide receiver. Well, yes, they did. They invested in Sky Moore, and Sky Moore just wasn't it, right? Time Out Sports says the Chiefs should call Julio and Jarvis Landry. Absolutely. These are two guys that can come in and help their team drastically, especially a guy like Julio. I think Julio's skill set fits with what the Chiefs like to do. Now, as far as Jarvis Landry, yes, he's an upgrade over any slot receiver they have. I see him being used in the slot. But they can definitely use both of these guys. Rashee Rice, he was the best out of this bunch of terrible wide receivers. Marquez Valdes-Scantling, he did okay. He did some good things. But when you look at that group as a whole, they're not a very good wide receiver group. And then you have a guy like Justin Ross, who they have high hopes on. He hasn't really played. I don't think he was active for the game. And if he was, he got no snaps. So that's their 6 wide receivers in a nutshell. And it's practically the worst in the entire league. It's that bad. But you know what? I was excited to see that terrible wide receiver core with a guy like Patrick Mahomes. We all say that these top tier quarterbacks are the ones that elevate these wide receivers, right? So I wanted to see Patrick Mahomes elevate these wide receivers, which he did. He was throwing good balls because he's Patrick Mahomes. But at the end of the day, these guys are one of the worst. And then without having a Travis Kelce, man, this receiving core is even worse than they were even thinking. So I think it's time for Kansas City to start thinking trade, start thinking Julio or Jarvis or somebody to come in and help this room. What is the difference between the Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers and the Giants wide receivers? They're about the same. The Giants might have more talent. And that's not even saying a lot. That's not saying a lot. So they got to figure something out because as great as Patrick Mahomes is, he needs somebody to throw that ball to. Time Out Sports says, MVS was great. He caught both passes for 48 yards. Should have been targeted more. I don't know if it was about him being targeted more. It might have been that he might not have been getting open. That's a whole nother thing. So if MVS is their best wide receiver, he's going against the best corner on the Lions. Was he getting open? I don't know. But should he have been targeted more? I agree. But I would say that Patrick Mahomes, the way that the Chiefs run their offense is that it's a spread offense. When they lost Tyreek Hill and they transitioned to just Travis Kelce being the main guy, really the number one option, you saw more of a spread offense in terms of all the different wide receivers that they've had. They've always had a spread offense, but when you have a guy like Tyreek Hill who consistently gets open and who actually catches the ball, he got a lot of targets. When you have a guy like Travis Kelce, who is a matchup problem for any linebacker, for any corner, for any safety, he continues to get open, and that's why you always have a Travis Kelce getting tons and tons of receptions. So, yeah, as I react to the game, the play calling was terrible. The Kansas City Chiefs, they are going to miss Eric Bieniemy. There were little things, like you always hear about Bieniemy coaching people up tough, and doing all these different things, right? I think that there was a portion in the game where I think it was like 2nd and 1 from the point that Patrick Mahomes ran with the ball. And obviously, he's not going to go head first. He never goes head first. He always slides because that's what smart quarterbacks do. But had he just fought a little bit harder just to get that first down, I think the game turns. I think the Kansas City Chiefs possibly score a touchdown and then seal the game. But for the fact that he slid, then on the very next play, they gave Kadarius Toney the ball. You have Pacheco, you have Clyde Edwards-Helaire, who's, jury's out for him. But either way it goes, you have other running backs on the roster, and you run a Kadarius Toney at 2nd and 1. That is ridiculous to me. Who is calling these plays? I don't want to hear nothing about Nagy this, Nagy that. We're going to talk about Matt Nagy in just a minute. Next thing I want to say is on the next play, instead of throwing the ball or going for it or whatever the case may be, it was 3rd and 1. They ran the ball again, and I believe it was another wide receiver. Maybe it was Sky Moore trying to pick up the one. Like, what are y'all doing? If you do not have a running back that can get you these 3rd and 1, 2nd and 1s, these short yardage situations, then get you a running back who can. Kareem Hunt is out there. Leonard Fournette would be perfect for the Chiefs. He's out there. And he's an excellent receiver as well. So he's another guy who can catch the ball, both Kareem Hunt and Leonard Fournette. So there's lots of guys out there that can help this Chiefs offense, because if this Travis Kelce injury lingers or if it continues, it could be bad for everybody that's involved. It's just real interesting that a team like the Chiefs, led by Patrick Mahomes, being in Arrowhead, a place that people hardly ever get wins. Here's a Lions team who, 2 years ago, they won, less than 5 games? And then last year they had a great resurgence season there in the upswing, 9 games last year? And this year it could be more. But at the end of the day, they are the Lions. This is the Lions, right? No disrespect to them, but when you have a caliber of team like the Chiefs, Super Bowl winners, the performance and look, Dan Campbell, excellent coach for the Lions. He outcoached Andy Reid. Dan Campbell is one of them coaches. He goes hard. He says all the right things. He's a tough guy. But at the end of the day, it's like your team has to put up or shut up, right? So they lost Jamal Williams, right? And Jamal Williams was a big part of turning this team around. That energy, that attitude, that edge. You lose to Jamal Williams, you bring in a David Montgomery, who's a major upgrade, in my opinion, over a guy like Jamal Williams. You bring in a Jahmyr Gibbs, which Jahmyr Gibbs did not impress me until that run in the 4th quarter where he broke the tackle. It was almost like a basketball move. He was going forward, he goes back, then he goes forward again. That was when I said, you know what? I'm impressed, because I was waiting for something out of Jahmyr Gibbs. And I know sometimes it takes rookies a while to be great. I mean, Jonathan Taylor didn't come out great right away, right? A lot of the great running backs didn't come out great right away. I'm interested to see what Bijan Robinson does. I think he's one of those guys that everybody's looking at as being that next generational talent. People are saying that, Saquon Barkley, he's better than Saquon Barkley, or he's on that level of Saquon Barkley. He's coming in with the same kind of hype that Christian McCaffrey had to warrant that being picked in the top 10, So it's going to be amazing. I'm real interested to see how things shake up. All right, let me fix my ticker, and then we'll get from there. Back to the game. Amon-Ra St. Brown, he was on his way to a major game. This guy has a chance to lead the league in receptions. He's just that good. He's that good. We got Dave in the building, man. Appreciate you for hopping on the stream, man. I'm going to stream quite a long time today. I got some time today. So, yeah, we're going to stream, man. We're going to have a good time. We're going to go through some NFL news as well. But, yeah, man, Amon-Ra St. Brown has a chance to lead the league in receptions this year. He's consistent. He's not the fastest. Josh Reynolds, he surprised me. He had, 4 receptions for 80 yards. He did really good. So I'm excited to see how this Lions offense improves. What role would Jameson Williams have? What is his role? And that's what I'm most interested in, because you look at Jameson Williams, right? He was a guy that possibly could have been the first wide receiver selected in this class had he not got hurt. And, it's just one of those things. This is where I got time. Good deal. Appreciate you being here, man. Let me pull up this box score. Make sure there's no storyline that I'm missing. Why would the Chiefs not want to pay a guy who deserves to get paid? You were missing Big Jones in the middle, and guys like Montgomery capitalized on that, right? You have a guy who is elite. I think that Jones is one of the best, if not, you can say he's right after Donald, right? After Donald is Jones. He's a guy that produces at a high clip, and he definitely could have helped these guys out. But, the Chiefs, it's one of those things where, hey, you've won, and this is a 2-time Super Bowl champion in Jones. Like, how can you not, you know what I'm saying? It just makes no sense to me. It's mind-boggling. Like, what's going on with this team. They need to just find a way to get this deal done, get Jones out there. He's much needed. Trent McDuffie. I was so impressed with Trent McDuffie. He was practically the best defender the Chiefs had. This guy right here produced at a high clip. He made 2 nice tackles that prevented first downs. Like, I look at the little things. You know what I'm saying? Good to see my boy Leo Chanel out there. Nick Bolton, man. Woo. When he on that blitz, this dude ran over David Montgomery, and then that's when David Montgomery got mad and pissed. And I believe the Lions should have kept going to David Montgomery. David Montgomery ended up with 21 carries. He had 74 yards. He was averaging 3.5 yards per carry. He got going late, and then he had that game-winning touchdown, that nice touchdown. He had a great game. Then you have Gibbs, who had 7 carries for 42 yards. I wanted to see more out of Gibbs, but it was like they just kind of easing him in. He did have targets. He was he was targeted twice, but at the end of the day, he was involved. But look at the carries. David Montgomery 21 carries to Gibbs 7 carries. And in fantasy, you can't get discouraged. Just Montgomery was terrible before the last drive. I'll give you that. But that's what I'm saying. I think when they ran at Montgomery, I think it was Nick Bolton. He tried to get to the quarterback, and Montgomery was like trying to block him. He ran him over, and from that point, I mean, he went crazy. He was pissed off. I still think that Montgomery should have gotten more burn. Yes, I think they're easing Jahmyr Gibbs in, but at the same time, it's like, is Jahmyr Gibbs truly ready? If Jahmyr Gibbs was truly ready to be the guy or to be the workhorse, I think that he would have got more. There's a reason why he only got 7 carries. So I will give you that. Montgomery was terrible until that last drive, but he was consistent. He was consistent, man. He had a few good runs, but his 21 carries to 74 yards, 3.5 yards a carry, that's not fun. It's not attractive, but it just is what it is. Like I said, Josh Reynolds, I was impressed with him. 4 receptions for 80 yards. He looked really good. And he really complimented Amon-Ra St. Brown. So you got something there. Sam Laporta, I was so impressed with this kid. Most times you have these tight ends, they come in and they don't produced right away. Sam Laporta produced right away. He was a touchdown away from having a huge fantasy night. Says that first run to start the game, it was a nice 6-7 yard run. It was, but he was just inconsistent throughout the game. He started the game well, ended the game well. I think Montgomery is going to be a thing this year. He's going to be a guy that gets the lion's shares of the carry. He's going to be a guy that in that Saints offense where the Saints had Mark Ingram and Alvin Kamara, you're going to see that same type thing here with David Montgomery and Jahmyr Gibbs. In fantasy, you're going to be upset some nights. You're going to be upset some days because you don't know who's going to get the goal line carries. And I just think right now, Montgomery is the guy that gets the goal line carries. This guy could have 10 touchdowns rushing. It's definitely feasible for a guy like Montgomery. But Gibbs is going to get love. Gibbs will be used in the passing game. But back to Sam Laporta, man, 5 receptions for 39 yards. It doesn't seem like a lot, but the guy was sure-handed. He was targeted 5 times, caught 5 balls. He's only going to get better. And at this pace, just imagine if he catches 5 balls every single week for 17 games. Just 5. You know what I'm saying? That's actually 85 receptions. So right now he's on pace for 85 receptions. Does he get 85 receptions? Most likely not. But that's a chance I'm willing to take out of a young rookie who looked good. He looked the part. And like I said, he's only going to get better. So he's a guy who can easily get 70 receptions, a guy who can easily get 700 yards and then possibly 3, 4, 5 touchdowns. Who knows? But yeah, I was very, very impressed with Sam Laporta being a rookie. He was sure-handed. He was targeted. He was 4th in targets. Marvin Jones actually got targeted 6 times. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe that Marvin Jones did fumble the ball. Yeah, he fumbled the ball. Once Marvin Jones fumbled the ball, they were kind of discouraged from Marvin Jones. He could be a thing for this team as a 3rd, 4th wide receiver, but right now it's Reynolds, Amon-Ra, Laporta. These are the 3 guys I trust in terms of the receiving game. And obviously, as Gibbs gets more comfortable, he's a guy that could flirt with 50 to 70 receptions if, they target him. Now, we go back to the Kansas City Chiefs and what this receiving core looked like. We already talked about it a little earlier. MVS had 48 yards. Justin Watson had 45 yards. Noah Gray, he was solid, 3 for 31. Pacheco, I told you guys we were going to talk about Nagy, right? So Nagy they're going to run the ball. They're going to run the ball. We just know his track record. Dave says, and the dude is a blocking tight end also. People say he's a blocking tight end, but I've watched this game and I saw the upside. Like the same thing they said about George Kittle. It's the same school, right? Iowa State. You come in, you're a blocking tight end, and you get into the league, and you can do more than actually blocking. So yeah, I like Laporta, man. I like his overall game. I like that he can block. I like that he can catch. Says Time Out Sports says Jones is washed. This should be his last year. This is definitely his last year. But for right now, he's going to be their 4th, maybe 5th wide receiver. I mean, I'll take Jones as a 4th or 5th, but he definitely looks terrible. He looks terrible. I'm not going to lie. Rashee Rice, 5 targets, 3 receptions, 29 yards, and a score. I was excited to see Rashee Rice score. This is great for me and my fantasy teams and my dynasty teams. I got me tons and tons of Rashee Rice. I'm excited about it. McKinnon, I was shocked with the usage for McKinnon. McKinnon barely got carries. He got 0 carries. I don't see his name anywhere here. He got 0 carries, and he had, 1 reception for 10 yards. Like, what to make of it? Scott Moore targeted 3 times, 0 receptions. 0 all across the board. Kadarius Toney targeted 5 times. He caught 1 for 1 yard, and he had 3 or more drops. Right, so Kadarius Toney looked bad. Justin Ross, he did get in the game. I didn't even know. 1 reception, 6 yards. Richie James, this is just a bunch of Jags. Their receiving core, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, all 6, 7 got in the game. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 7 Kansas City Chiefs wide receivers got into the game and made at least 1 reception. And the sad part is that they are all Jags. They're a whole bunch of nobodies who didn't produce. They didn't produce. But yeah, it was a great game. It was a great game. I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it to the core. Man, that tipped interception return, Brian Branch for 50 yards and a score. That was magnificent. Even Khalif Raymond came in, made a nice play. He made a nice grab. One catch for 20 yards. It's another twitchy guy. You get him the ball in space, he can do some things. So the Lions offense overall looked good. I feel like they could have done more. Without that Marvin Jones fumble, who knows what Jared Goff's stats looks like. Maybe like an extra score, 253, two scores. Mahomes is real solid, 226, two touchdowns, one interception. It just is what it was for him. His team didn't help him out. Defense, even though they struggled at times, overall they were solid. They did give up 118 rushing yards, which isn't bad. That's as solid as it comes. I think Chiefs played enough defense. They practically almost scored enough. Like, how can you say, oh, they won the game? I mean, they won the game or they had a chance to win the game. The Lions had 14 points on offense, right? So I think that the Chiefs offense did enough. They definitely could have had an extra score, but that was that. Since Tony looked like a guy the Giants thought they traded last year, and that's the thing. There was all this hype, even in the dynasty world. Oh, Kadarius Toney this, Kadarius Toney that. I was trading away Kadarius Toney in my dynasty leagues for second-round picks. I didn't want anything to do with Kadarius Toney, and I still don't. And I was so glad that I was able to get rid of him as much as I could. He's not him. He's not him. Just is what it is. A bunch of small wide receivers. The roster construction is terrible for these guys. Let's go ahead and go through some news. I'm gonna go through some fantasy news or just some NFL news in general. There's tons of injuries right now. Let me pull up my notes. Give me a second. I know for a fact for my Commanders, things are looking good. Terry McLaurin, he's a full go. He's good to go. Treylon Burks, he's good to go. Christian Watson is out. So get him out of your lineups. He was a guy that I was excited about. And then Romeo Doubs, he's questionable. So what does that mean? All that means is that Jaden Reed has a chance to command targets. Jaden Reed has a chance to be, a guy that leads the Packers in targets and maybe yards and receptions. So yeah, it's things are heating up. You got the injuries going on right now. Obviously, you never want anybody to get hurt, but it's just injuries are part of the game. And if you're playing fantasy football, you definitely want to plan accordingly. Now, the Rams are sending a bunch of guys to the IR, including Stetson Bennett from Georgia, the rookie that they drafted, a guy that I'm excited about in Dynasty. I'm stashing a lot of Stetson Bennett because I don't think the Rams are going to be good. Number two, I don't think that they continue to play Matthew Stafford if they're not good. Maybe a team comes out and trades for Matthew Stafford. They can be in that Caleb Williams a group of teams that are trying to, get them. I'm not saying that the Rams are going to tank, but at the end of the day, they've lost a lot. That defense looks terrible. It might be time to move on from Aaron Donald. Did he retire? I don't know. I haven't heard anything about Aaron Donald. That's just how bad this Rams team has been, to be honest. Who else? Joe Burrow slated to play. He got his bag. He got his money. He's now the highest paid QB in the league. Do you guys think that Joe Burrow should be the highest paid quarterback in the league? He's very good. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying the way these quarterbacks are getting paid, a lot of times they don't have enough money to, build the rest of their teams. So to me, that's very interesting. It's very interesting. Dak Prescott, he's ready to go. There was some news about him not necessarily being, able to go. There was some, but he's good to go. Running backs, Zach Charbonnet, he's going to have the backup duties. Him and Kenneth Walker are fully healthy and good to go. So that's great news for everybody who is a Seattle fan. Kenny McIntosh from Georgia, the third running back for that squad. That's the squad that has three running backs with no years of experience to 1 year of experience, right? So he's out. Ramondre Stevenson, there was some news about him. Somebody reported that he wasn't in practice, but the media can only be, on the field for a certain amount of time and then they're gone. So maybe when that media guy left, Rhamondre showed up. He did do some light work. He's questionable for the opener. I think he plays. They're saying, maybe an illness or or whatnot. A guy like Rhamondre, I'm going to bank on him playing. But being that it's a later game, you guys want to be careful. You guys want to have a backup plan. I hope you guys have a guy that you guys can stick into your lineups if Rhamondre Stevenson is not able to play. Josh Jacobs, he's good. He's ready to go off of that. There's no injury designation with him. Dalvin Cook, he's good to go. I believe that Breece Hall is going to be eased in. So if I had to guess between Breece Hall and Dalvin Cook, who gets a lion's share of the carries, it's going to be Dalvin Cook. You paid him for a reason. You brought him here for a reason. You brought him in to be a vet that plays ball, a vet that is pretty good, right, and solid, and does his thing. So that's what I think happens. We'll see how that pans out with that backfield. Aaron Rodgers, Jets, I think they're going to be a very good team. Somebody was asking me yesterday. They said, who do you think is going to win the Super Bowl? And it's kind of hard to think early in the season. You want to think of all the guys that have the elite QBs. You have your Patrick Mahomes, you have your Josh Allen, you have your Joe Burrow. But you got to put Aaron Rodgers in that same realm with all these other guys. He might be old, but he's still Aaron Rodgers. And if Aaron Rodgers plays ball this year and this Jets defense is truly improved, and if that offensive line can hold, do not be surprised if you see the Jets in the Super Bowl. Now, that Jets game, Buffalo game, is going to be tough defense. At the end of the day, this is Aaron Rodgers. Great quarterbacks do great things. So I'm expecting the Jets to win that game. I'm expecting Rodgers to have a great game. I know he hasn't got a lot of reps yet with his new team, his new wide receivers, Garrett Wilson and the rest of these boys. But I do expect that game to be good. I do expect a good showing out of the Jets skill players. Aaron Rodgers, people are saying don't start him. I'm gonna start him if I need to. If it's a one quarterback league where I don't need to start Rodgers, then I won't. Using common sense. But in a two quarterback league, best believe. All right. Moving on along, let's go ahead and get into some wide receiver injury news. You have Jackson Smith and Jigba. Excited about him, rookie from Ohio State. He just had surgery, and he has no limitations. He's cleared. He's good to go. But it's another one of those things where I feel like he's going to be, eased in as that number 3 wide receiver behind DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett. So I'm expecting Jackson Smith and Jigba to play. But if you're starting him in your fantasy teams, it's more understandable to do so in dynasty leagues. But in actual redraft leagues where you have tons of options, like guys like Terry and Godwin, and even guys that are, solid and even vets, it's kind of hard to trust Jackson Smith and Jigba over a guy like Mike Evans, who's playing a Minnesota defense who's pretty bad. So, Jackson is good to go. Happy about that. Devontae Parker, he's questionable. I don't know what happens with that entire receiving group right there, but it's definitely not like the Chiefs. Devontae Parker, you're gonna have Juju Smith-Schuster. They're talking about his knee. That his knee is a ticking time bomb. That his knee might go out. Juju Smith-Schuster is saying that he's fine. He's saying he's strengthening himself. Jerry Jeudy's a big one. His status is in question. We don't know. But if I'm a betting man, I would say Jerry Jeudy might play, but do not start Jerry Jeudy on your fantasy teams. You will be highly upset. You will be highly disappointed. So if I'm you, I will not start him. That's just me. Who else? John Mechie. This guy just gets sad news after sad news. He has a hamstring injury, and he's ruled out for Sunday's game in Baltimore. We just keep on waiting for the awaited debut of John Mechie, who overcame leukemia. Thank God for that. So I'm happy for him. But man, you got to wait possibly till the 17th against the Colts for him to make his debut. Now, we heard about Odell Beckham Jr. with the ankle injury. Is he going to play? Is he not going to play? He tweaked his ankle, but he's good and he's ready to go. There's no designation to his status. He's good to go. He's going to give it 100%. But at the same time, OBJ, don't expect to see the same OBJ you saw even with the Rams. New team playing with Lamar. Lamar wanted him. He wanted Lamar. So marriage made in heaven. But at the end of the day, Zay Flowers is that guy. Zay Flowers was drafted in the first round to be him. So I think that Zay Flowers will be the number one wide receiver on the Ravens this year. But you're going to have games where you have OBJ balling. You're going to have games where you have Rashard Bateman balling. I'm still all in on Rashard Bateman. Do not quit on Bateman just yet. And sneaky tight end to own this year is Isaiah Likely. If you have space, if you're playing in a deep league, because if Mark Andrews is to ever miss a game, you have a guy like Isaiah Likely who's going to come in and be to the Eagles what Dallas Goedert was to Zach Ertz. Likely is to Mark Andrews. Get you some Isaiah Likely in your life. He's that good. All right, moving on along. You have the Giants and Darren Waller, man. Let me be honest with you guys. When they signed Darren Waller, I said, you know what? He stays hurt. There's a reason why the Vegas Raiders traded him away for a third. And really, Vegas won. They won the trade. You trade away Waller, you grab a third, you take your second, and you draft you a Michael Mayer. Michael Mayer, who was regarded possibly the best tight end coming into this year's draft until we heard and we got to learn who Dalton Kincaid is or was. So, I don't know what happens. His chance to play this week is 50-50. And we're talking about Sunday night. So, in fantasy, you might not have any other options on the wire. You're going to look at his backup. You're going to look at the game for Monday night and kind of see what tight ends can you grab to plug into that system. So if Daniel Bellinger is out there right now, grab him in your leagues for free. If you are a Darren Waller manager, you want to be in on the front end and not the back end. I know I say that all the time because we know that Darren Waller can ball, but when he's hurt or when he's, you just never know with this guy. And that's why I have a lot of Daniel Bellinger shares in Dynasty. All right, moving on along. George Kittle, that's the cousin to Darren Waller. They are practically brothers, not cousins. They stay hurt. But the difference between Darren Waller and George Kittle is that George Kittle actually plays more than Darren Waller. So he's listed with a groin injury. It's questionable, and it could end up being a game time decision. And this is one of them games that come on later in the day, that second game. So you want to this is the first game. 49ers play Pittsburgh first game, first later game. So you're good. But at the end of the day, you still have to be able to manage your teams and get the right guys in and out of your lineup. They say that Zach Ertz is questionable to face Washington, but to be honest, I don't think he plays. And if he plays, I don't see him being a factor. You're going to get more of a Trey McBride. Matter of fact, it's Trey McBride season. You can see a scenario where Zach Ertz is traded away because this Cardinals team is really, really bad. Shout out to Graham Gano getting a 3-year deal. Yes, kickers do matter. He got the bag. It was $16 million or so for Graham Gano. Let's go through a few more NFL news. So the whole thing with Cooper Kupp, right? Cooper Kupp is great. When he's fully healthy, he's great. But when he's hurt, we've seen 2 instances prior to this one where he's gotten hurt and it kind of took him out. But I hope he gets better because I'm a huge Cooper Kupp fan. But in Dynasty, I was trading this guy away. There was a Dynasty trade that I made. I traded Cooper Kupp away for Christian Kirk and George Pickens. Now, Both of those guys don't equal up to Cooper Kupp, but if you can see the future, you can see that Cooper Kupp is getting a little older. So in Dynasty, you get rid of older players. So me getting rid of a guy like Cooper Kupp to get a guy like Christian Kirk, who was a wide receiver 1 last year, and then get me a guy like George Pickens, who has a chance to be the number 1 receiver on the Steelers, if not this season, then in the future. So I like to use my players. I won a championship and just kind of broke the team up. I like to get younger in Dynasty. When you get younger, it just gets better because you don't want to end up with guys like, for example, Dalvin Cook. This could be Dalvin Cook's last season. This season, maybe next season, and he's done. In the leagues that I've gotten rid of Dalvin Cook, I got maximum value because you can kind of tell when players are about to fall off. Me and Tom Sports were talking earlier on this chat. He said a guy like Marvin Jones, he's washed. He's done. I get that. And, it's just one of those things. You don't want to end up with a guy like Stephon Diggs, and let's say that after this season, he might play next season, and that's it. Or this might be his last really good season. So if you can get maximum assets for a lot of these guys, you go ahead and do it. All right. And if any of you guys have any fantasy football questions, any starts and sits questions, be sure to drop them in the chat. And if you're going to be watching a replay of this stream, be sure to put it into the comment section. And I do respond to the comments. I'll be able to come back and respond to the comments. We talked about Christian Watson being out. That's a big one. That's a big one. You want to make sure that your quarterback, your young QB in Jordan Love, has full complements of weapons. But sometimes it happens to where, top players get hurt and you just have to adjust. You have to adjust. That's why as, GMs continue to build teams, they have to build smarter. You have to build smarter. You have to make sure that you have multiple pieces just in case an injury happens. Boom, you have a big replacement. You have a huge, you have somebody who can come in, maybe not give you the full production, but give you some of what the starter could give. And I look at teams like, let's say, even the Ravens, right? This is the one year that I can say the Ravens actually have depth at wide receiver. They've never had a caliber of wide receivers as they have now, right? With OBJ, Zay Flowers, and Bateman leading that group, you have other guys. Duvernay's still there. He's a guy that I like, a guy that took a step forward last year. So it's good to have depth. I'm gonna go through some starts and sits, and then we'll go ahead and wrap this stream up. Unless people hop in and have questions, then I'll stick around even longer. Man, I haven't done this in a while. All right, let's look at QBs. Anthony Richardson, do you start him or do you sit him? One thing we know is that Anthony Richardson is going to run the ball. He's going to run the ball. He's going to have that upside. So in leagues where quarterbacks get 4 points per touchdown, you want to have guys like Fields and Lamar and, all these different running quarterbacks. That's where you get your best bang for your buck. But in one quarterback leagues, do I start a Anthony Richardson week 1? I don't know if I can do that. I don't know. I have to see him consistently produce. Tua Tagovailoa versus the Chargers. This could be a shootout. Tua finished as QB 10 in fantasy last year in points per game, averaging 17.8. Because he was hurt so much, you can't just give him like QB 10 overall. We have to go by points per game, and that's really what matters. He averaged 17.8 points a game last year to end up as QB 10 for points per game. He's a good start. Geno Smith versus the Rams. Look, start all of your Seattle guys versus the Rams. The Rams are just that bad. They're just that bad. So I would do that. Anthony Richardson, you can start him if you want to. Start him at your own risk. I think he's going to be a good player, but does he ball out week 1 with no Jonathan Taylor? If Jonathan Taylor was there, at least it makes things easier, right? The pressure's off him. Now you can stack the box and say, hey, Anthony Richardson, make some throws. And that's what's going to be interesting about the game Sunday. Let's see. Who else is on the list? Obviously, Jared Goff already played, but he was a good one, right? He produced. He didn't produce as much as we might have wanted him to, but he did all the right things. I can say that Jared Goff played a great game. I'm in a fantasy draft right now. Cooper Kupp just went at 6-12 in Dynasty. If followed by Jerry Jeudy in the 7-1. Had Cooper Kupp made it to me in the 7th round, I would have taken him and just stashed him. I have a win-down team with Josh Allen, Dak Prescott, Travis Kelce, and then I think I drafted Austin Eckler and Ramondre Stevenson. So Jahan Dotson just went. He was the guy that I truly wanted next. I'm kind of sad. I should have taken Jahan Dotson at the 6'10". Jahan Dotson's going to have a great season. So now that Jahan Dotson is gone, I'm going to take a Brandon Ayuk. I believe he's still young enough, and he has definitely a chance to be a top receiver on his team. Even with Deebo Samuels being there, give me Brandon Ayuk all day long. All right. Now, moving on along, Deshaun Watson, how does he perform? It's going to be a big game. The Browns versus the Bengals. Does he produce? Does he not? It's going to be his first full year being with the Browns in terms of no suspension, going through a full training camp, having a rapport with his receivers. They brought in Elijah Moore. How does he perform versus the Bengals? I don't know. Daniel Jones, he's another one. He played good last year. He ran the ball. But this Cowboys defense is nice. They've even improved this season, so it seems. So I don't know. Kenny Pickett is a guy that I'm not messing with. Like versus that defense from the 49ers that now can boast that they have Joey Bosa, who's getting QB money, $35 million per year is just absurd. It's just insane to me. So that's that for QBs. Let's go ahead and look at some running backs. Who do we start this week? That's the question. I'm not gonna lie, things are getting exciting. Okay, let's do wide receivers before we go to running backs. Chris Olave had an awesome season last year, over 1,000 yards, and he has a chance to build upon that. He's playing the Tennessee Titans, and the Titans corners are suspect at times. They're suspect at times, and who knows? I don't know if they've improved. I saw preseason. They didn't look good. Chris Olave could be a smashing play versus the Tennessee Titans. He does have his best QB that he's had in a while. I mean, look, it's not like he's been in the league forever, right? So he's going to have a good QB, a decent QB at least in Derek Carr. So we'll see what happens there. Jahan Dotson, like I said, I'm starting that guy every single where. Terry had the turf toe, but Terry's good to go. But Dotson, whether Terry plays or Terry doesn't play, he's a guy that a lot of people are predicting to be a breakout candidate this year. So I'm excited for it. He had in his first game, second game, that Jags game was the second game. And he had, I can't remember if it was the first game, second game. Either way it goes, no, sorry. It was the first game of the season versus the Jags. And Jahan Dotson caught 2 touchdowns, including the game-winning touchdown. So, yeah, Jahan Dotson is him. Drake London, he might ball out versus the Carolina Panthers. You want to start any position skill guy that plays for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, whether it's running backs, whether it's wide receivers. Feel confident in starting Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. You might say, oh, my gosh, his QB is Baker Mayfield. Look, Baker Mayfield has shown that he can support and help produce pretty good wide receivers. He did it with the Browns, so he can definitely do it here. Let me see. Guys that I'm afraid of this year are guys like Gabe Vincent and Michael Pittman. With Gabe Vincent, we've seen him on a full season. He's just not the guy that we want him to be. He shows flashes and then he just crashes. So he's the guy that you can stick into your lineup for bye week play. He's a guy that's much suited for, I would say, best ball than redraft. Yeah, give me all the Gabe Davis in best ball. Michael Pittman, kind of the same. He's going to get some targets, but is Anthony Richardson really an upgrade in passing the ball? So the jury's out. Then a guy that I loved prior to what just transpired was Hollywood Brown. Hollywood Brown was the guy that I was getting in Dynasty, and now he's stuck with a Joshua Dobbs or Clayton Tune for the foreseeable future until Kyler Murray comes back. It seems like they're going to play at Kyler Murray. But yeah, that Washington defense is going to be humming. They're going to destroy the Arizona Cardinals. So I'm not playing anybody from Arizona versus Washington. Rashad Bateman is a good play, especially if something was to happen to Odell Beckham Jr. I think that Bateman has a good season this year. If he's healthy, we know what he could possibly bring to the table. Javonte Williams, welcome back to the NFL. You're playing the Raiders, and they're going to be missing Chandler Jones. So that's a big piece to their defense. Javonte Williams, he's a good play, but he could be eased in. So you want to be careful and temper your expectations there. J.K. Dobbins, he's primed for a big season. And if he can just stay healthy, man, you don't know what he can possibly do. Jahmyr Gibbs, we already talked about that. He already played, so we can't really give too much on that. Sneaky pick will be a Raheem Mostert, especially with Jeff Wilson landing on IR, and then Devin Achane not actually being acclimated to the NFL just yet, and he's coming off of injury himself. So if Raheem Mostert is the healthiest of the bunch, who knows? He could be a very, very, very sneaky play. You want to sit guys like Najee Harris versus the San Francisco 49ers. Jamal Williams, I'm not in on. I'm benching him everywhere. I think that Titans defense is good against the run, but that Titans defense is also bad against the pass. So go figure. Do what you do. Let's see. Now, in terms of Deion Jackson and Evan Hall, everybody's been asking about Deion Jackson. To be honest, I don't know. Does Anthony Richardson really possess that kind of skill set to find these running backs out the backfield, or is it a situation where the Colts are losing and now the Jags are winning, Colts are losing, and now they're playing catch up? I think that Evan Hall is more suited to the receiving game, even more so than Deion Jackson. But Deion Jackson was able to do it last year, and he shows that he can do it, and he did it well. Let's go ahead and hit some tight ends before we go ahead and end this stream. Tight ends. All right, who do we got? Kyle Pitts. This is the make or break a year for Kyle Pitts. I still don't trust him. He's one of them guys I have to see before I just put my trust in him ever again. Tyler Higbee is going to command massive targets this year. If you have Tyler Higbee on your team, you're winning, especially in Dynasty or even a redraft. He's a guy that you can grab late in the 14th, 15th round of a 15-round redraft league. He's going to command targets. No Cooper Kupp. That means that Matthew Stafford is going to be trying to get the ball out of his hands rather quick, and Tyler Higbee seems like the perfect safety blanket for him. So you have that. Everybody's in on the Dalton Kincaid hype. For me, I would bench him. I got to see what he can do. The Jets' defense is no slouch. At the end of the day, you're going against Josh Allen, one of the better QBs in the league. Juwan Johnson had the hype last year. He had 7 touchdowns. He has hype this year. I don't know if I'm buying in on the hype or not. But at the end of the day, if he's the starting tight end for the Saints, he's a guy that's playable versus the Titans. And who knows? With tight ends, it's just all over the place. We talked about Laporta earlier. He impressed me. He had a solid outing, 5 receptions for 30-something yards or 40-something yards. He was real solid. Dalton Schultz, even though he's a safety blanket for a guy like what's his name? CJ Stroud. But at the end of the day, I mean, we just don't know. So I do like Schultz this year. I just don't know what his role is going to be. Guys like Dulcich and Chig, those are two tight ends. This is the first year I can say that the tight end position is very, very deep. In terms of DSTs, just pick up Washington's defense versus the Cardinals. If you can, if they're still out there, you want to pick up other defenses. There's Seattle versus the Rams. I think the Rams are going to be terrible. Rams are going to be bad. And then last but not least, the Atlanta Falcons versus the Carolina Panthers. That's another good matchup, especially with DJ Chark being out. So now Thielen, he's questionable. So who is Bryce Young throwing to? You have Hayden Hurst as your safety blanket, which could be another guy. Hayden Hurst, possible another guy who can command some targets out of that tight end position. In terms of kickers, I don't care. A lot of my leagues, I have just gotten rid of the kickers. But guys, appreciate you guys for hopping on the stream. For those that are watching right now, please like, please subscribe, please share. For those that are watching the replay, and if you've made it this far, that's love. Appreciate you. Please like, please subscribe, please share. I'm going to catch you guys on that next episode. I'm out. Peace.